And how was it that you got into the watch industry? I was reading that you used to work at Omega. Am I right in saying that?
I started with the Swatch Group. Yeah, so for me, PN is still one of the cradles of the Swiss watchmaking. It's not small, it's more on the production side. If you see our neighbors here, it's just a big crown. We're just in the center. And you have the headquarter of Swatch Group, you have Rolex here. And obviously, PN was also in the history, was all the time, it's also on the border of two languages. It's only the Swiss German or the normal German speaking part, the French part, and it's really in the middle. It's almost 50-50 in the city. And people you take out of Bienne, they speak several languages already when they get out of school. Wow. In Geneva, it's more French-oriented. In Zurich, more German. English becomes fast the third language. So you take someone young, 16 years old, out of school, 3 languages already done.
Amazing.
And as you started, and here in production, you see all these logos. And then you see the watch industry represents internationality in the city. So I said, I want to go to work in the watch industry. And of course, I also have family members beforehand who were already active. A lot of family friends who are working in the watch industry. And the same is here, the city by its own has 60,000 people with the surroundings, which became cities 100,000. But the business is so substantially implanted in the city that you can't go out in the evening. I just to sit in a restaurant and talk about business. You do not know who is sitting from which brand next to the table.
Yeah.
So that is. So for me, it was a dream, and it represented internationality and to learn and to discover the world.
And how did you actually, I speak to quite a few people that are in the watch industry. This is including myself, by the way. And you ask them how they got into the watch industry and they say, I have no idea. I just kind of fell into it. I just ended up here. Is that kind of the same trajectory as you? Did you study for this kind of thing, or did you just fall into it?
I got stamped already. So I have a very close family friend who was the founder of the Swatch watch. So I still keep one prototype before Swatch was released. At that time, I was pretty much young. I started to collect watches when I was young. Not Patek Philippe's, it was more Swatch watches as a pleasure, you had vegetable watches and all this. So I felt into love. And here, a lot of people of the industry. So by me, it was not coincidence.
Yeah.
It was really a plan paired with commercial direction. And as soon as I could get in, I think I was 18, boom, I was the first step was Omega. Exactly.
Yeah. And how did you...
And you learn a lot,
Yeah, I was going to say, so did you learn a lot from Omega that you took to Doxa afterwards?
No, of course. So first of all, it's the respect to the industry. It's a respect to the product. It's a respect. I remember the first 2 months, what they did. I saw myself already in a plane visiting a market. Of course, that was not happening. And the first thing what they did, they sent me 2 months into the museum. And for 2 months, I was cleaning watches.
Wow.
So if you ask me the history of Omega still today, in and out, and you started to get respect to the industry, to the product, to materials, to gold. And then as an honor, after 2 months, I remember I was allowed already to make first tour in the Omega Museum to customers.
Wow.
So you step in and and then you grow, you learn. When you go back into 89? Omega, there was also not what Omega is today. Much more references and all this. And you learned a lot when you followed later on with Swatch what the manager who came in, big challenges were around, how they streamlined the brand, how they streamlined the collection, how they build up the markets. And I remember, and if I tell this to my kids, they laugh. I remember when we got the presentation where the first fax was presented, the fax machine. I was still with telex working, no emails. And then remember the first, this is incredible, fax machine. It means with Japan, you can send a document and if it's signed, it's legally valid. This is my time.
Yeah.
So basics.
Yeah. And
then, of course, the love to the,
Yeah. And what did you think of the new Swatch watch that was released quite recently, actually, the new Moon Swatch? What was your views on that?
Oh, listen, I can't judge other brands' direction, philosophy, strategies. I can't do that. I stay neutral. Of course, I'm a lover. I worked for Swatch.
Yeah.
Interesting to see how they move on. You hear two voices, but the product by its own, of course, is very nice.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, well, listen, I think that I love the direction that brands are going, especially through the social media side of things, because Swatch itself is such an accessible brand, so they attract a lot more people within to the industry. So the kind of bubble that the Moon Swatch created got more people into watch collecting in general, which will spill over and then help the likes of Doxa, the likes of other luxury watch brands, and I think that's an absolutely a kind of brilliant thing. When you kind of worked with the Amiga group, what was it that you took across to Doxa in terms of learning? Is there anything that you specifically learned that you took across to Doxa?
Well, also, of course, it's the skill how to treat the market, different mentalities, different cultures.
Yeah.
That helped. The respect to the product all the time needed, respect to human beings, respect to the staff, self-confidence. There's all the time a solution. Yeah. There's never a situation where there's no solution. Sometimes solution a bit more drastic, but stay focused, stay oriented, and stay balanced. Mm-hmm. And so this is more from the management skill, and also creativity is very important. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And also how to mix. Here I jump into Doxa, how to balance a rich heritage a brand has and to bring it to a next generation. It sounds easy. Oh, just put an ad in social media. It's not this. Give you an example for us in 1698, Jacques-Yves Cousteau, all the generations, everyone knows Jacques-Yves Cousteau, mm-hmm. Calypso. He was an explorer of the ocean in the 50s.
Yeah.
He started to take on Doxa in the United States. If you go today to young people and you quote Jacques-Yves Cousteau, they may ask you, is this a new player from Paris Saint-Germain? So for us, it's logical and to be able to speak the language of today's customer and tomorrow's customer, especially knowing also that in the watch industry, a lot of challenges came in, despite economics was not too bad the last years. But for example, with the Apple Watch, 12 million Apple Watches, which is interesting now, what the brands do. I mean, somehow the next generation is used to data, exchange, fast access of information, health, whatever. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Technically, you put an item on the wrist. On the same time, it's an item who's abusing electricity every day.
Yeah.
And it gets abused. After 1 year, next one. The beauty of a mechanical watch, if you treat it well, you can pass it on for generations and it's never getting obsolete.
Yeah.
And it doesn't eat up electricity.
There's something beautiful about the mechanics of a watch as well that's not really... It's an old way of thinking and working that isn't really as prevalent in society nowadays. You mentioned the Apple Watch there. There's this kind of fast food technology, whereas that's not luxury watches. Luxury watches are those sentimental purchases that can be passed down through the generations.
Yeah, look at that. A mechanical watch, of course, today some material has changed. But the general knowledge of the mechanical movement is older than 200 years. It's amazing.
It's incredible.
And still work, yeah.
Yeah, and what was your kind of when you came into Doxa? I suppose did you do manager roles before Doxa also when you were working with the different partners? How did you find managing people for the first time?
Oh, listen. Also, I had beforehand. I had already positions as CEO, also of a big group in China. Being the one at the time we opened up the Chinese market for all the high-end brands, the Swiss high-end brands, also our Swiss high-end watch brands. With the team, listen, look in the mirror and you can expect from a team what you can stand behind and what you are also willing to do. And if you learn, you need to understand every different level of a team structure. Mm-hmm. As big as it is as not, but it helps that you can understand their capabilities, their worries, their sorrows. A watchmaker thinks differently as an international or global sales manager. Yeah. Being around, a watchmaker needs to stay focused. And just to reunite, I see myself as a coach.
Yeah.
I have open doors. I'm not a big fan of very different hierarchies, or how you say, to keep it as flat as possible. Sometimes I need to give the direction, but I'm also willing to give trust and delegate. And in a good way, sending out trust that the people can move on by their own, and a certain degree can also take their own decision. That's just motivating. If you go into being in a control freak position, it's not pleasant to work with, and it doesn't support creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found that a lot within our own business, within Chisholm Hunter, that I think when I first joined, I was the control freak. I needed to know when everything happened, why it was happening, why it was a specific way. And you end up just burning yourself out. And also the team don't learn because they need to make their own mistakes for a period of time to learn.
Everyone makes mistake, and you just can learn. There's no Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, even not in business. Just make sure that the mistake is not too heavy. Yeah. That's the responsibility until where you need people to decide by their own. But of course, only the people who work make mistakes. The people who don't work, they never make mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.